Our next question is from Tyler.
Hi, guys. My name's Tyler, and I'm a Patreon subscriber from Ann Arbor, Michigan. I had a pretty simple question for y'all. Have you ever had one object or thing or person experience that took the place of many other things? This question came in mind as I bought a new pair of minimalist training shoes that replaced like 3 other shoes in my wardrobe that just didn't provide as much value. Thanks for everything. Bye.
Leo, something you helped me realize really early on when I was still simplifying was the purpose of a thing is to be used or enjoyed. It's not for status. It's not to get other people to like me. It's it is enhancing my life in some way, amplifying my pre-existing joy or happiness or whatever it might be. It doesn't create happiness, but sometimes the things that I have are like tools in my life. And it's appropriate to have multi-purpose tools as well. I think of a smartphone as a multi-purpose tool, and that can be really useful until it's not. It can also really get in the way. Sometimes the multi-purpose things are a bit cumbersome, and it makes sense to even simplify those. But to answer Tyler's question head on, yeah, quite often, if you buy a really great pair of shoes that you enjoy, it might replace all of the absurd shoes that you had for all of these different occasions. And I noticed especially, Leo, with your clothing, you wrote about that quite a bit on Zen Habits early on. A lot of your clothing was sort of multi-purpose. So I have a pair of pants that will work here, work for my walks, it'll work for the gym. And I realized like, oh yeah, I don't have to have 7 different things when one thing can replace all of them. Can you talk a bit about that?
Sure. I was racking my brain actually to come up with an answer to that question. I'm like, what do I have that actually like replaces many things? But clothing is a good example. Yeah, I don't have a lot of clothing. I wear the same stuff every day, like a few t-shirts and I think 1 pair of pants now. And I'll wear this for travel. I'll wear it for speaking. I'll wear it around the house. In general, I also have like workout clothes and I wear those a lot. But yeah, so for me, it's hard for me to remember what it was like before I did all of that. So, but I did have a lot more clothing and I had to have, clothes for this purpose and this purpose and this purpose. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to wear the same thing to everything. No one cares what I wear, I'm not I'm not there for fashion, And so people are just like, okay, that's just who he is. The one answer I did come up with was a phone, actually. I had, used to have a bunch of books. I've gotten rid of a bunch of books. Then I replaced it with a Kindle. And then now I got rid of the Kindle and I'm just using the phone because I already carry that around. Anywhere I am, I just have the books right there on my phone. And so that's what I use for books, but I also use it. I don't use notebooks anymore. I use it for notes. I use it for writing sometimes when I'm out. And so there's just like a lot of apps that I use now that replace a whole bunch of like physical things that I used to have. I love like physical notebooks, but I was like, I'm not bringing it everywhere. And they're like half filled and not using it that much. And so I'm like, the phone's just always with me. And that's not that revolutionary an answer, but that's the one answer that I did come up with.
No, but I think it's helpful also to look at the other side. For some people, just getting rid of the notebook and the calendar or whatever, for some people, those things are more useful than the phone because the phone can be a distraction. Right. But for you, it sounds like the phone isn't a distraction. Why is that?
I don't have a bunch of notifications and I don't have like social media and stuff like that on there. The phone is for me just a tool for making stuff and reading and all of that kind of stuff. There have been times when I get hooked on something. Like Reddit was something I was hooked on when I was really interested in like a couple of topics. So for that, I was on Reddit all the time. And then I'm like, okay, uninstall Reddit. This is not like how I want to live my life. So like now, it's not that I don't ever look at social media or email or messages or anything like that, but I don't find the phone to be terribly distracting. I guess it's just like how you relate to the phone.
Absolutely. And what you just said there, I had to write it down because what a profound, simple statement, and yet really profound, especially if we say it out loud. If I'm doing something that I don't want to do, simply saying aloud, just to myself, but this is not how I want to live my life. And maybe even rephrasing it as a question. I'm scrolling TikTok for 45 minutes. Is this how I want to live my life? And if the answer to that is yes, great, no judgment. But you're being honest with yourself at that point. But what we often do is we consume mindlessly. This isn't how I want to live my life, but this is how I am living my life because I never stop to consider, is this how I want to live my life?
I really, really love this theme. And I'm going to have to spend some time later just kind of digging into this of the one thing by which many things are obtained. And I think about it in terms of like my own health journey and having to make a lot of eating changes and just no longer being able to physically, digest things that I used to eat, a lot of comfort foods. And what I find is that a lot of the things that are healthier for me, though they take a lot of initial discipline to eat, they tend to be more satiating than a lot of the other things I would eat. So when I'm eating a bunch of snack foods, the things I can get at a gas station, I need to be eating all the time because although it tastes good, it doesn't nourish me. And so I need a whole lot of it. And I'm hungry all the time, eating all the time. And then it's like, hey, I get myself a nice juicy steak. It's like, I can go for hours without anything, right? And so there are things in life that they're so lacking in substance. They're so superficial that we get addicted to them, not because there's something wrong with us, but because we're trying to meet a real, substantial, important need through things that are just not optimized for what our soul really longs for. And so where this plays a major role for me is with social media declutter, knowledge declutter. We're in an age of information anxiety, man, where it's like every single day there are thousands of videos being produced on a single topic. I heard someone say something to the effect of like, even just like 100 years ago, being a polymath was possible. You could read like 3 books on each field and be a polymath. Whereas now, anything that you want to know about, sorry, there were 1,000 YouTube videos produced on that yesterday. Good luck just catching up on that, right? And so you feel like you got to know a bunch of stuff. And Professor Sean and I were talking about this with his YouTube habits, where sometimes just reading one good book is worth 1 billion tweets. Sometimes just reading one primary source on a topic that you're interested in, or one textbook or one classic written by somebody that's not alive today on anything from psychology to economics can be worth 1,000 podcast episodes of people debating about that. Or take it with relationships. One person telling you, I really appreciate you, or sitting across from you in a coffee shop discussing a difference they have with you can be more valuable than 20 million people liking that tweet, or 20 trolls, 20 ideological opponents arguing with you online. And so we're so obsessed with keeping up and having so many conversations. And part of that may be because we're not having real relationships, real interactions, real conversations, reading real books and exploring things of substance. And that's kind of been my one thing that I use to obtain many.
I love that. I was thinking about going back to the question of social media on the phone. What I realized after I gave my answer to that was that there's a need that you kind of spoke to, that the need that drives us to want to like look at our phone for social media or TikTok, or looking at just basically distracting ourselves. And so what I realize is that that's that need we're hoping to fulfill through the phone. Another way to look at it is like there's a stress or anxiety that we're having that we think that the phone will relieve. So like, I'm feeling stressed right now, and I'm going to get on my phone to relieve myself of that stress, like distract myself, give myself a little bit of downtime. And if you really pay attention to that stress, it actually goes up as you engage with these things.
That's right.
It's like, this thing that I thought was going to now I'm behind on everything else that I was supposed to do. Now I'm like more like I'm busier, and I'm like frantically like scrolling, and it just like accelerates the feeling. And so what I realize is the reason why the phone isn't as big of a pull for me It's, it has some things. I do work stuff on my phone too. So it has some pull for me, but it's not as big a pull for me anymore, is that like I address the stress directly. I just notice like, oh, what's having me reach for my phone? Oh, I'm feeling like some overwhelm right now. I'm feeling some anxiety about something that's coming up. So I'm like, actually before this podcast, I was feeling a bit of nerves coming into this podcast. So I was like on my phone and I'm like, I think I'm feeling some nerves. So I just sat with the feeling that came up. And it's just like uncertainty about what might happen.
It's fascinating. It's almost like taking painkillers that increase your pain. In a way, that actually is what happens. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. It's the overdose capital of America. People get stuck on opioids, right? Because they take them to relieve a pain, but it ends up causing so much more pain in their lives. And I think the same is true not with the phone itself. The phone isn't inherently bad, just like opioids aren't inherently bad. They have a purpose. But when we reach to it, anytime we feel a bit of discomfort or boredom or anxiety or stress or overwhelm, it actually ends up amplifying the emotions we sought the phone out to eliminate in the first place. And so realizing that whatever emotion I'm feeling right now, the phone is probably going to amplify that. And it's certainly not going to extinguish my anxiety. I hope you enjoyed that highlight from the Minimalist Private Podcast. If you'd like another highlight, check out this video. If you'd like to watch the minimal episode, check out this video. Or if you'd like to dive deep into full episodes of the Minimalist Private Podcast, head on over to Patreon. The link is in the description. Your support keeps our podcast and YouTube channel 100% advertisement free.